Hey, it's Greg with Evolution Mental Health Services. So today I want to start a new topic, which is drugs, alcohol addiction. So I'm a licensed alcohol and drug counselor and a licensed professional counselor. As a licensed alcohol and drug counselor, I've worked a lot with people with drug and alcohol issues, addiction issues, and I get asked a lot of questions about drugs and alcohol and addiction and how all that works. So I thought we'd spend the next few weeks covering some important things to know about substances and addiction. So today, what I want to talk about is how drugs and alcohol affect our brain in real time while we're ingesting them, okay? So while we're drinking or while we're ingesting a drug, what's happening in our brain as we're doing that, okay? So something someone said to me years ago that always stuck with me is when we're using, let's say for instance when we're drinking, but it would apply to other drugs as well. If we're drinking, it starts by attacking the front of our brain and just slowly works its way back, okay? So you may remember from previous videos that the front part of our brain controls our rational thinking, our problem solving, that sort of thing. It's where our executive functioning maybe would be a good way to put it. It's what separates us from other animals, okay? It's why we can build rockets and they can't, all right? So that's the first part of our brain that gets affected by substances. So if we're drinking alcohol, that part starts to shut down first, which is why you notice people start saying and doing things they wouldn't normally say or do, because the part of their brain that says, don't say that, don't do that, that part has gone to sleep. And so now that's not there to help us out. If we keep going, we get to the part of our brain that affects our instincts and our emotions. So I'm sure you've all seen people, they get very emotional when they're ingesting substances. They, become more angry or they become more happy, or maybe they're sitting in a corner crying. Okay, that's because the rational part's turned off and now we're on this total emotional, instinctual part of our brain. But that part will shut off too eventually, and that's why we go from being animated to just maybe sitting in a corner or being catatonic or whatever to doing not much of anything, all right? And if we keep going, we'll eventually move into the part of our brain that affects our just basic survival, the part of our brain that affects our breathing and our heart rate and things like that, which is why if you keep going long enough, you can eventually die. If you're drinking, you can keep going to the point that you stop breathing. Same thing with certain drugs like opioids or benzodiazepines. You do enough of them, your respiratory system stops working. Or if you're doing stimulants, you can have a heart attack even with certain ones if you take too much. So that's just a good way to remember it. It starts by attacking the part of our brain that makes us think clearly. It eventually attacks our emotions and instincts and all that, and eventually shuts those down to the point where now we're just surviving and not doing much else. And if we keep going, eventually that part will shut down too, and really bad things can happen up to and including death. So I hope that's helpful. Evolve, be who you want to be.